Hey everybody, I'm Shane Snipes and you're watching Sustainable 1000. Thanks so much for joining me today as I continue my journey around the country. It's been so phenomenal to have met so many folks from around the U.S. and this 48-state eco road trip. I'm going to do the other two states, Hawaii and Alaska, virtually, I've decided, since the greenhouse gas and carbon footprint of going over there is just going to literally... Okay, get this, guys. Driving around the country now, 20,000 miles on my car, right? On my Prius. Coming up on the end of the trip as I approach Florida. And one of the things is, if I fly to Alaska, it will immediately double my carbon footprint on this project. After driving around since April, continuously, yep. I don't put as much carbon as one airplane ticket. It's so crazy.
You got a kayak to Alaska. I mean, that's the solution right there.
Totally. Or walk, just take it up there. Just wait till the springtime.
That's right. Absolutely. I think that's the solution, and it'll be beautiful, and you'll learn a lot. It'll be fantastic.
Absolutely. So you guys should know that I'm talking to Suzanne. She is the executive director of the Conservancy here when we're talking about this area on Bald Head Island, North Carolina, where I actually have been here in the mid-90s, 1997, 1998. Spent a lot of time here, and 96 too, I think. Has it changed much? Have you seen a transition?
Sure, I've seen a transition. We've added more houses, we've added more people, and that's had an impact on the land. We've seen a huge impact of non-natural erosion, and then we've seen natural erosion as well. We've got 3 different beaches facing different directions, and each one of them is being impacted by climate change in a different way. What hasn't changed is, and this is a great thing about this community, is their commitment to try to live here sustainably.
So, and that commitment shows up in what ways, really, for you?
Well, it shows up in the existence of this organization. We're a nonprofit organization, and our mission is Barrier Island Conservation, Education, and Preservation. So we exist to help people live here and to give them the tools to figure out how to live here sustainably.
My favorite barrier islands is Ocracoke.
Yeah, that's a good one. But, this island the state had 3 chances. The feds and the state had 3 chances to make this a preserve, and they chose not to. At one point, they could have bought the island for $8,000. Instead, it was developed. Where we're really lucky is that the developer was the 3rd developer that actually came along. 2 others went out of business, and this was a guy who had a real vision, an environmental vision, and he was smart too. He knew what would work on a barrier island. Barrier islands are dynamic, they're moving, you cannot tame them, and so they built in a manner that worked with the environment instead of on top of it, and that's what makes us really different.
Sure. Talk a little bit about those different environments, because one of the things I find fascinating when I explore different natural environments, and I've seen all these different ones all across the country, from deserts 120 degrees all the way to mountaintops, and seeing them blown off from coal, right? So we have all these different circumstances. What are some of the things that you really have to be conscious about as a conservancy on an island to make sure that bad choices don't happen? What are those bad choices?
Well, the first and foremost, if you've ever been to a beach, particularly on the east coast of the United States, you've probably seen maximum density. So you've seen a grid-like pattern with huge houses right next to each other, and boardwalks cutting through the dunes or what's left of the dunes to get to the beach, and the beach just covered with people. That's very different here. One of the first things you'll notice is that the houses are built into the dunes, into the contours of the lands. They don't call their roads here roads, they call them wines, and yeah, that's a little, sexy, but the purpose is that they didn't change the contours of the land, they kept the contours of the land. When a hurricane hits Bald Head and a huge wave inevitably bursts through that primary dune, that wave will follow the natural contours of the land. It won't take out one house and then with the debris from that house take out multiple additional houses, and not only destroying the infrastructure, the human infrastructure, but destroying the dunes. When a house is taken out here, and it will, that house will probably have minimal impact on other homes, but more importantly, other dune factors that ultimately protect the habitats here.
Sure. Talk a little bit about the education programs that you guys have developed, and why you developed these specific types of education projects?
It's one of our most proudest achievements. We educate 17,000 people per year, and we do all kinds of different programs. So we have kids camps, of course, but family adventure programs. We take people kayaking on hikes. We have an old-growth maritime forest here. There's nothing like it in the world. It's just absolutely fabulous with beautiful live oak trees, cherry laurels, and red cedars that are just historic and gorgeous. They've been through hurricanes, they've survived. So it's really important for us, for our community, to appreciate the beautiful nature that exists here. We've got 200 acres of preserved woods. It's really important for us to get our community members and our visitors out into those areas. When they're in there, we focus not just on the specific kinds of plants or animals that live there, but the role that the community plays in protecting their island. So if you come here and it's a beautiful place to bring your family, the nature protects you, much more so than an insurance policy. It's the healthy dune systems, our old-growth maritime forest, and our 10,000 acres of marsh that are your real insurance program here on Bald Head.
If you look into the future with Bald Head Island, what percentage of the land is not going to be developed, basically?
Well, of the developable land, we've already preserved through our land trust 10%. So that's really good news. We either have it under an easement, or we've helped other state or private agencies to preserve it. We are only a little over halfway built out, so you're going to see a lot more houses here, and they will have an impact on the sustainability of the island. There's no question about it. But the choices that people make are really important, and this comes back to education. In most hurricane-prone areas, people think the first thing you should do is cut down the trees around your house. What we know for people that live and work here is that it's the trees that protect you. And the people that survived Hurricane Rita often survived when their house blew away in a live oak tree. It's that tree that you want to keep up. It shears the wind off your roof and protects your roof. So what we do here that's a little bit different is we integrate sustainability with the fact that this is a developed island, that people do live here, and we help them live here with the community, the natural community, and make sure that they understand how that can work together and help them protect this natural environment and in turn protect their non-natural investment here.
Absolutely. And there are no cars here, so which I love.
Isn't that great? Yeah, everybody gets around by a golf cart, so it's a really unique place. Bike and golf cart are the two primary sources of transportation.
Yeah, I came over on the ferry this morning, and I was looking for the bike place because I wanted to rent a bike and cruise around like I had done so many years ago now. And sure enough, I found it and started biking around and just cruising along this one Federal Way?
Federal Road.
Yeah, Federal Road. It's the only road on the island.
Only road on the island. And it's the only straight one because it's where the train tracks used to go from one lighthouse to the other.
So there you go. And it's such a great little area with the way that the land and the trees all kind of create this natural canopy over the walkway or the bikeway and all of that. Tell me a little bit about what it might look like if people start making specific sustainable choices. Is there a movement toward green building and sustainable building here?
I think first and foremost people have made those choices. So when you drive around Bald Head, one challenge I always pose to people is show me the houses. It's actually, unless you're on the beach where there isn't a lot of tree cover, but in the area where there are forests, it's hard to see the houses. And that's right. And that's because they didn't cut down their trees. So more often than not, people have actually wrapped their houses around a tree in order to protect it rather than cut it down. And when they do cut down trees, they plant them back. And that's part of the covenants of the community here. So a lot of sustainable ideas are already here. What we're hoping to see are things that we've learned living here. So for instance, originally part of the aesthetic was to have no gutters on the house. It was not only an aesthetic consideration, but also we're in a hurricane-prone environment, and that was considered a weak area. But what we find is that when our hard tropical rains hit our rooftops and then come off those roofs, it actually leads to some erosion issues. So we're asking a community to reconsider that, to go ahead and put gutters. And now we've got new technology to put hurricane-safe gutters up. Little things like that. Another thing that we're doing at the Conservancy is we're monitoring our aquifer. So we work in partnership with the village of Bald Head Island we've drilled wells, and we monthly go out and monitor the quality and quantity of the water in our aquifer. We are seeing saltwater intrusion. That's something that we're watching, and we're developing ideas about how do we make sure that the water that we use is treated and goes back into our aquifer. It's actually infiltrated into our aquifer. That's something that goes on all the time on the West Coast, but here on the East Coast, where water hasn't been as much of an issue, it's very new and innovative.
Sure. And you guys definitely have to deal with it because you are on an island.
That's right.
And food is the other part of it. Do you have a movement towards sustainable food supplies and what that looks like for an island?
I think the food is less of an issue. There's certainly the resort mentality out here and the need to encourage people to come here and spend their money and have food. What I've seen with the food is oyster shell recycling. There's a weekly oyster roast here that one of the developers puts on. And the Conservancy has been a big part of an oyster shell recycling program. So they've gone out of their way. They've spent more money to actually sort out those oyster shells, give them to us. We keep them during their stinky phase, and then go ahead and put them back out into our marsh and make sure that our marsh is sustainable. So those are the kind of food trends. We are seeing a little bit more locally grown use by our chefs on the island. The community has a community garden, and our community gardeners just walked by. So, they are raising some of their own food. But mostly I think what you see in terms of sustainable practices are how people are living here, not only riding their bikes, but the choices that they're making building. And we're seeing more and more practices where people are conserving water. They're making sure that their plants and their landscape are native species. And they're making sure that the choices in the products that they're using are good choices. And trash removal is a big deal out here on an island. So you want to reduce down your packaging and things like that.
Definitely. I know you guys are always excited to get your live questions. I don't know that you actually know who I'm talking to today. I put it on my calendar so you have it out there, and I usually get several dozen questions. I have checked my Facebook, and I know I have at least 35 questions from you guys. So we'll do our best to answer those in this next segment. So stay tuned. I'm Shane Snipes, and you're watching Sustainable 1000. And make sure you check out the Conservancy at their website, which is
www.b.hic.org. Come on by.
Absolutely. We'll be right back, guys.